It's the year 2200 and the world looks vastly different from what we know. In this alternate timeline, the Axis powers won World War II and established a new world order. The Third Reich, Imperial Japan and Fascist Italy became the dominant superpowers, ruling over the entire world with an iron fist. The Nazi Party took control of Europe, Africa and parts of Asia, while Japan gained control of the Pacific Rim and Southeast Asia. Italy, on the other hand, ruled over South America and the Middle East. Under their rule, the world was plunged into darkness and chaos. The survivors of the war were either forced into slavery or sent to concentration camps, where they were tortured and experimented on. The world was a living nightmare with no hope for redemption or salvation. The skies were always dark and the streets were filled with fear and despair. The story follows a young girl named Anna who was born in a concentration camp. Her parents were killed when she was just a baby and she was raised by the Nazi Guard. She was subjected to constant abuse and torture and her life was a living hell. Anna grew up in the concentration camp, never knowing anything outside of its walls. She was constantly subjected to the cruel and inhumane treatment of the Nazi Guard, who saw her and the other prisoners as nothing more than objects to be used and abused. They were subjected to long hours of hard labor, little food and minimal rest. Anna watched as prisoners around her succumbed to the harsh conditions and died one by one. But she refused to let the Nazi guards break her spirit. She held on to the memory of her parents and the hope that someday, somehow, she would escape and find a way to fight back. One day Anna was working in the fields when she saw a group of rebels approaching the camp. They were a ragtag bunch of survivors who had banded together to fight for their freedom. They had been on the run for years, hiding in the shadows and striking back at their oppressors whenever they could. Anna watched as the rebels launched a surprise attack on the Nazi guards, catching them off guard. They fought with fierce determination, their faces set in grim determination. The Nazi guards were caught off guard and quickly overwhelmed. The rebels managed to free a small group of prisoners, including Anna, and together they fled into the night. Anna had never been outside of the concentration camp, and the outside world was a strange and terrifying place. Everywhere she looked, she saw the remnants of war, bombed-out buildings, piles of rubble, and the corpses of the dead. The rebels led Anna and the other prisoners to a secret hideout deep in the mountains. It was a small, cramped space, but it was safe for the time being. The rebels tended to Anna's wounds and fed her for the first time in days. She felt a flicker of hope that maybe there was a chance to fight back against the Axis powers. Anna joined the rebels, and together they launched a series of attacks against the Axis powers. They sabotaged supply lines, blew up munitions factories, and assassinated key officials. They were a thorn in the side of the Nazis, and they made a difference. Anna quickly became an asset to the rebels. She was intelligent, resourceful, and brave. She had spent her whole life in a concentration camp and had developed a deep understanding of the inner workings of the Nazi regime. Anna worked closely with the rebels' leaders, sharing her knowledge and experience of life in the concentration camps. She helped plan their attacks and offered advice on how to avoid detection by the Nazi guards. But their luck eventually ran out. The Nazis were able to track down the rebels' hideout and launch a surprise attack. The rebels fought back, but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Anna watched in horror as her comrades were killed one by one, their bodies piling up around her. She was captured and taken back to the concentration camp, where she was subjected to even more torture and abuse. But Anna didn't give up. She refused to let the Axis powers break her spirit, and she continued to fight back in her own small way. She formed a secret resistance group within the concentration camp, and together they plotted their escape. Anna knew that escape would be difficult, but she was determined. She knew that the only way to truly fight back against the Axis powers was to stay alive and keep resisting. In the end, Anna and her comrades succeeded in escaping the concentration camp. They joined forces with other resistance groups, and together they launched a massive assault on the Nazi stronghold. The battle was long and grueling, but in the end, the rebels emerged victorious. The Axis powers were defeated, and the world was plunged into chaos once again. But this time there was hope. The survivors of the war banded together to rebuild their shattered world, and they vowed never to let the horrors of the past repeat themselves. They created a new world order, one that was built on peace, equality, and justice. Anna became a leader in this new world, working tirelessly to ensure that the atrocities of the past were never forgotten. She inspired a new generation to fight for their freedom and to never give up hope. Her legacy lived on, and the world was a better place because of it. But the scars of the war were deep and would never truly heal. The world was forever changed by the horrors of the Axis powers' reign of terror, and the memories of those dark days would never fade. But the survivors knew that the only way to move forward was to fight for a better future, and they were determined to make that future a reality. Anna dedicated her life to helping the survivors rebuild their shattered world. She traveled to different cities and towns, helping to establish local governments and setting up systems to provide aid and support to those in need. As she worked tirelessly to help others, Anna never forgot the horrors of the past. She knew that the only way to ensure that the world never returned to the darkness of the past was to educate future generations about the dangers of extremism and hatred. Anna founded a school to teach children about the horrors of the war and the importance of tolerance and acceptance. She worked with educators to develop curriculums that emphasized empathy and compassion, and she wrote books and articles to educate people about the dangers of extremist ideologies. Through her work, Anna became a symbol of hope and resilience. She inspired countless others to fight for a better future, and her legacy lived on long after her death. But even as the world moved forward, the scars of the past never truly faded. The survivors never forgot the horrors they had endured, and they vowed never to let history repeat itself. They worked tirelessly to build a world that was just and fair, where every person was treated with dignity and respect. And while the world would never be perfect, the survivors knew that as long as they continued to fight for a better future, there would always be hope. They had seen the worst of humanity, but they had also seen the incredible resilience and strength of the human spirit. As the years passed, the world slowly began to heal. The scars of the past faded, and the world became a brighter, more hopeful place. And while the memories of the war would always be with them, the survivors knew that they had the power to create a better world, a world where peace and justice reigned supreme.